Ragna is the smelliest loser nerd who was labeled as the worst one, and couldn't even become a dragon hunter like the rest until he magically was able to awaken his future self, unlocking a special unique power, and becomes the strongest dragon hunter, even killing the dragon god for revenge. In a world full of dragons, humans seek protection through dragon hunters. To make a living, dragon hunters willingly take on quests and kill dragons using two methods, either by freezing the dragon's heart using a silver sword, or through sunlight to burn it down to a crisp. The story begins as our main protagonist, Ragna, is on a quest to slay dragons with his pink-haired friend, Leonica. During the quest, Ragna starts to have a vision in which he sees himself way into the future, slaying a dragon without any weapon. In his vision, he sees that even with so much strength, his future self was still hungry for more power, and before he could see any further, he is interrupted by a dragon which lunges towards him. To protect the daydreaming brat from dying, Leo jumps in and flexes off her dragon-slaying skills, living up to her title, the prodigious dragon hunter. After extracting the dragon's heart, Ragna and Leo wait till morning and they let the dragon's body burn in sunlight as they froze the dragon's heart using a silver needle. After keeping the heart as evidence, Leo and Ragna return back to their town Ragna in a kingdom called Lesse. After reaching the town, Ragna turns in the dragon heart and receives a huge sum of money as reward. Immediately after receiving gold, Leo and Ragna spent their money on a diner nearby and have food after the tiring quest. Moreover, since Ragna was older than the 12-year-old Leo, Ragna took a picture of Leo, documenting her every day as she approached 18. Eavesdropping from nearby, Sykes Charlix, the second strongest dragon hunter in Lesse after Leo, started to insult Ragna out of jealousy since he was jealous of a loser like Ragna being friends with Leo the prodigy. Annoyed by the insults, Leo defended Ragna as she unsheathed her silver sword and brandished it towards Sykes, demanding him to shut his mouth. Moreover, seeing that she had gathered attention from everyone in the diner, Leo then began to yap about who wanted to join her in a journey to kill endless dragons. Scared, nobody dares to lift up their arm except Ragna, who swears to accompany Leo till his very last breath in front of everyone. Later that day, as Leo is asleep, Ragna decides to head out and practice his swordsman skills. During his practice, Ragna suddenly hears the whisper of an old man which causes him to have a vision in which he sees that he will lose everything that he cared about, including Leo. The next day, since there were no quests available at the guild, everyone planned to head east to a town called Donna Piru. Overjoyed, Leo starts to plan for adventures, but she immediately starts to worry as she sees Ragna, who had dark circles under his eyes as he was unable to forget the sight of Leo's death in his vision. To comfort Ragna, Leo reassures him that he will become strong someday and he is not completely useless since he had some hidden powers that were waiting to get triggered. Hearing Leo, Ragna starts to have a flashback in which he remembered that he was a curse since everyone who took him in for care were killed by dragons, that is until Leo partnered up with him. The next day, the guild is filled with confused dragon hunters since Donna Piru had been invaded and destroyed by a horde of dragons overnight. Moreover, as everyone was debating about what had happened, Leo was shocked to see Ragna's pale face and she hurried to the gallery only to find town Ragna engulfed in flames. Witnessing the flames, Ragna panicked as he knew that his vision was slowly becoming a reality. But before he could stop Leo, Leo jumped off of the gallery and hurried to stop the dragons from causing even more casualties. To prevent Leo's death, Ragna hurried to fight off a superior dragon which had a human-like figure, but with insanely strong powers. Finding an opportunity when Sykes had distracted the superior dragon, Ragna jumped and tried to kill off the dragon from its back, but it completely backfired as he got eaten into the nether world. Seeing Ragna fly across the sky like a Roblox avatar, Leo jumped in to fight the superior dragon and she tasked Sykes to aid Ragna, who was drowning into the nearby river. As Ragna sank into the depths of the river, Ragna finally started to see his future clearly, in which he saw that after Leo would die, he would go on a never-ending journey to kill all dragons, and he would make new friends and lose them too. As he saw the complete outcome of Leo's death, he suddenly started to see the old man from his previous vision, and he realized that the old man was none other than his future self. To change the horrible fate of Ragna, the future self Ragna lended his powers to present Ragna, granting him immensely strong powers. Meanwhile, before he killed off Leo, the superior dragon revealed that his name was Grimwelt, and he was the lowest-ranking superior dragon. Moreover, he revealed that the superior dragons followed the god of dragons, and recently, due to his favorite bakery closing down as it got robbed, he is angered and has let off an army of dragons on the humans. After all the chit-chat, as Grimwelt prepared to kill off Leo, Ragna appeared out of nowhere after he had taken care of the dragons nearby using Silverine art style. Scared by the radiating energy from Ragna, Grimwelt immediately transformed into his dragon form. But it was of no use since Ragna easily killed the superior dragon with one single blow. With the future timeline altered, Ragna immediately ran over to Leo and hugged her as he cried out loud. The next day, Ragna finds himself in a bed with Leo and Sykes by his side. Believing that Ragna was a fraud and had been hiding his powers the whole time, Sykes demands an explanation from Ragna, but due to fatigue, Ragna ignores Sykes and goes to sleep. Before Sykes could attempt to wake Ragna up, he is suddenly interrupted by an earthquake caused by the forest which was closing into the town. Somewhere else, a chef and his 3 waitresses trembled in fear as they presented lamb pies to a queso look-alike superior dragon called Temruog Taff, the 8th-seat dragon. Presented with anything food-related, the superior dragon gobbled down lamb pies and proceeded to yap about the taste of it. Annoyed that he wasn't presented with Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington, the fatso decided to gobble down the chef and the 3 waitresses as he exclaimed that they tasted far better than the dish they had presented. Meanwhile, Sykes wandered around Ronabra and found out that a dragon, which was immune to sunlight, was behind the forest getting pulled towards the town. Whereas Leo, who is busy taking out the dragon's tentacles, spots Ragna held by the tentacles and hurries to save him. But she instantly realizes that one of the dragon's tentacles was about to deliver a fatal blow to her. Sensing that Leo was in danger, Ragna awakens from his sleep and launches a strong blast wave of silverine, freezing nearly half of the dragon tentacles. Shocked by how instantly Ragna dealt with the issue, Leo tries to call Ragna over, but Ragna was locked in and started to emit the silverine aura while Naruto running towards Temruog Taff. Upon meeting the superior dragon, Ragna instantaneously sliced and froze his face. After dealing with the superior dragon, Ragna starts to rage and makes it his resolution to kill all dragons in order to protect his beloved Leo. After pondering about killing all dragons for a while, he snaps out after hearing a waitress's voice, whom he instantly recognizes as Crimson, the dragon monarch from his vision. Upon recognizing the waitress, Ragna asks the girl if she was Crimson, but the girl denies it. Feeling confident in himself, Ragna insisted and told her that her name was Eliza Yorkshire, a 14-year-old, and she was a dragon. Moreover, he drops the biggest bombshell of the whole century as he reveals that the girl was in fact male. Finding Ragna autistic for making such wild assumptions about her, the girl slaps him for calling her a dragon and a male. Before matters got worse, Leo interrupts them and asks Ragna to head back since the dragon superior's hunt was already over. Just as they turn to head back, the superior comes back for round 2 as he lunges towards Leo, but Ragna easily helps Leo evade the attack. To end the fight, Ragna uses a raw sin gun attack, obliterating the dragon into pieces. After finishing the superior dragon, he then tells Leo that she has to leave with the townspeople as Ronabra is now a complete battlefield. Refusing to leave Ragna's side, Leo lashes out at Ragna and swings her sword at him, which he parries it with his finger, putting Leo to sleep. After a while, Leo wakes up only to find herself being carried by Syke away from Ronabra along with many other residents. Back to Ragna, Ragna insists Crimson to come and fight dragons with him, which she obviously shows reluctance to. To gain her support, Ragna then yaps about how he is good at household tasks, and how he helps and can become a servant for Crimson before fainting due to fever. During his unconsciousness, Ragna once again starts having a vision of how his future self had met up with Crimson. After a long time being unconscious, Ragna wakes up and tries to explain his vision to Crimson, which takes place 20 years into the future. Just as Ragna was explaining his vision, they both spot a group of dragons flying towards the townspeople and they both rush to fight it. After catching up with the dragons, Ragna uses one of his silverine art attack as he pierces a dragon with a sword and freezes it. After finally realizing Ragna's true powers, Crimson finally admits that she really is a dragon monarch as she vomits her slime and transforms into her true form. After finishing her transformation, she finishes off all the remaining dragons with a second. After dealing with the dragons, Crimson hands a poison to Ragna and tells him that she is willing to work with him only if he will drink the poison. Adding on, she reveals that the poison will only work if he feels any malice towards Crimson. Without any hesitation, Ragna drinks the poison instantly, which surprises Crimson, and he asks why Ragna wants to kill all dragons. Hearing Crimson's question, Ragna reveals that he wants to protect what his future self couldn't, and for that very reason he wanted to form an alliance with her. Meanwhile, a group of people are seen fleeing away from a dragon who turned out to be the 3rd-seat superior dragon, Desus Trois. Basically, Desus had embodied the wind and had the ability to create rapid tornadoes. Using this unique ability of his, Desus trapped a bunch of women inside his tornado and sliced off their bodies piece by piece, using the wind as his blade. Whilst he was slicing off women in his tornado, luckily some of the residents of the town nearby escaped Desus's grasp, and ran off. As they were making a run for it, they get interrupted by the sudden appearance of regular dragons, which they try their best to fight off. However, the dragons were able to outstrength the humans, but before matters got worse, Ragna and Crimson came to their rescue. Making his appearance, Ragna easily finishes off all the small fry dragons, and they both talk to the townspeople, asking them about their safety. Upon meeting with the townspeople, Crimson decides to fake a conversation telling the townspeople that Ragna was the great dragon reaper, and Crimson himself was a mage. Adding on, Crimson revealed that he can use magic in this world, and this magic is only used by some dragons and a handful of humans. Moreover, to flex on the townspeople, Crimson revealed the slime used by him, which appears in its human form and could talk. Seeing the magic slime alive, the townspeople exclaimed magic is amazing in pure fascination. Seeing magic for the first time with their very own eyes, the leader of the townspeople, Michael, approached Ragna and Crimson to ask for their help with the third seat Desus Troyes, who had made his way to the land of Tortier. Upon hearing about the Desus Troyes, Ragna prepares to leave to fight it, but he suddenly falls headfirst due to muscle fatigue. Seeing Ragna unable to move, Crimson initially refuses to help, but seeing that the townspeople were willing to give up their weapons just to get this dragon killed, Crimson decides to lend a hand. After a while, Crimson hands a silver sword to Michael and prepares them for battle at Tortier, as she uses a key to unlock a room filled with modern-day weapons. Seeing the arsenal of weapons in front of them, the town folks are surprised to see the variety of weapons. Moreover, Crimson also elaborates on how the bullet laced with Ragna's silverine will be used to take down dragons. Later that day, Ragna also reveals her curse to Ragna by shooting herself and resurrecting. After shooting herself in the head, she fed her carcass to her slime as a reward for giving intel on the Superior Three's position. Sometime later, the townspeople test out their newly acquired weapons at a gun range. After a lot of practicing, finally at dawn, the time finally comes when the townspeople are assembled and make their way to Desus Troyes in a van. As they approach Desus, Crimson announces their arrival on a megaphone and roasts the third seat dragon by calling him a beta male. Hearing someone insult his ass, Desus goes on a yapathon on how he isn't lonely and how he earned his spot as the third seat Superior Dragon. Witnessing the Superior Dragon, the townspeople start to feel afraid due to the sheer size of the tornado, but they remain motivated, remembering their restless training in the past 2 days. After taunting Desus, Crimson sped up as the dragon angrily drifted towards them. Moreover, thanks to Crimson's silverine-laced ammo, the wind started to freeze, which slowed the tornado. However, this angered the dragon, but the townspeople kept it together and kept on firing at Desus, as Desus kept on insulting the dragon hunters while being shot at. After a while, he is hit by silverine battle arts done by Ragna, which knocks him out of the tornado, as he couldn't believe that he was finally being defeated. To end the battle, the townspeople finish him off with a silverine sword and few bullets along with the help of the sunlight. After defeating Desus, the townspeople are sent on their way with resources, and Ragna begins to understand how strong and sharp Crimson's planning to lure Desus to the sunlight was. Meanwhile, Crimson pulls out a radio and plays a broadcast by the Defense Ministry of Lesay Kingdom, ordering all citizens to evacuate to the royal capital, which seemed like a setup to both Crimson and Ragna. 5 days prior to current events, the king of Lesay, Femad Lesay, was visited by the first seat monarch dragon, Ultimatea, as she breached the barrier and froze time to relay God's message about the fate of the kingdom. Upon meeting up with the king, Ultimatea revealed that she was going to finish off the kingdom and told that the death of mankind in the kingdom was inevitable because God had said so. Seeing that there was no room left for negotiation, King Femad used the solar safeguard system to try and kill Ultimatea, but he fails miserably as the attack was deflected by a superior dragon, and Ultimatea is protected by the first seat superior dragon called Nebulum, and the 7th seat superior dragon, Borgias. After a while, she resurrected the king by reversing time and finally says that God wants the end of this kingdom, and there isn't any way around it. After Ultimatea declared an attack on the kingdom, the king announced a large-scale evacuation. Upon the evacuation alert, the citizens started to evacuate the borders due to the increasing dragon attacks. However, the number of refugees in the capital was reaching a whole new level. Meanwhile, everyone was worried, but the king didn't care, since he believed that the survival of humans was a lost cause since Ultimatea had declared her attack on mankind. On the other hand, Ultimatea is worried by the deaths of Grim Welt, Disaz and Temruog Taf by unknown killers, along with the death of Superior Dragon Dornia at the hands of Femad's daughter, Princess Starlia. To avenge Dornia's death, Ultimatea sends superior dragons Terictra and Ulto Wolticamui to kill Starlia, and she also dispatches superior dragon Wolticamui to investigate the other deaths. Meanwhile, Ragna dreams of a future Ragna memory where he was captured by the superior dragons. In that dream, Ultimatea was so impressed by Ragna that she began transforming him into a dragon, revealing that all superior dragons were once humans and they were all transformed into dragons by Ultimatea. Scared of the nightmare, Ragna awakens disgusted by Ultimatea pretending her massacres were a kindness to humans. Despite her being the strongest living dragon, Crimson decides it is vital she die next as they decide to head to Capital City. Upon reaching the capital city, Ragna discovers that without Leo he actually suffers from a fear of crowds. Whereas, Crimson is confused as she expected the city to be overflowing with 2 million refugees, yet it was barely half full, meaning that the superior dragons had already begun killing humans in large numbers, using an unknown method that doesn't draw attention. To investigate more, Crimson leaves Ragna with his slime and he orders Ragna to not talk to anyone and definitely do not do anything reckless in case he spotted Ultimatea. After a while, Crimson visits Golem, his servant who infiltrated the army as Colonel Rowan, and the shapeshifter Chimera to inform them that Ragna will attempt to assassinate Ultimatea. Meanwhile, Ragna witnesses the army parading with dragon corpses as proof they are winning the war, but he knows this is propaganda to keep the citizens pacified. During this parade, he suddenly spots Ultimatea within the crowd and he fights off this urge to take her out himself since he had promised not to do so. However, due to holding his anger back, Ragna's face turned red, which caused to garner Ultimatea's attention. Meanwhile, Crimson explains her plans for Ragna and Ultimatea with her allies when one of her allies thinks it's unwise to challenge Ultimatea because of her time control magic. In response, Crimson reassures them since he believes that Ragna is capable of defeating Ultimatea. Meanwhile, Ragna encounters Ultimatea and struggles with whether he should fight her or not. While Crimson's henchmen bicker about who is better than whom, the male lackey shows Crimson a footage of Ultimatea's time-controlling powers. After analyzing the footage closely, Crimson reveals that she knows a way around Ultimatea's time control magic. Back at Ragna, Slime helps Ragna quell his urge to fight Ultimatea by telling Ultimatea to pay Ragna no mind. Moreover, the boy accompanying Ultimatea tells Ragna and Slime that she's helping him find his parents, baffling Ragna as he couldn't believe a superior dragon is helping a human. Suddenly, the superior dragon Nebulum arrives and gives Ragna a mean-spirited look. Meanwhile, one of the Crimson's henchmen realizes Ultimatea cannot pause and rewind time simultaneously, earning her praise from Crimson. With this, Crimson believes Ragna can exploit this weakness to kill Ultimatea in a one-on-one confrontation. After making this discovery, Crimson asks her henchmen to assist Ragna by fending off Ultimatea's buddies Nebulum and Borgias. Meanwhile, after contemplating his decision to let Ultimatea be, Ragna asks Slime to contact Crimson and tell them that he encountered her in town. Back to Crimson, Crimson ponders over his henchman's ill will toward Ragna as he feels Ragna is under the palm of his hands. However, when Slime informs him through the device of Ragna's betrayal, Crimson is shocked. Meanwhile, Ultimatea and Nebulum help the boy find his family and she thanks Nebulum for his help. Spectating from afar, Ragna hears Ultimatea tell Nebulum that the boy's family will perish soon, confirming Ragna's belief that all superior dragons are menaces. Enraged, Ragna confronts the two and murders Nebulum before Ultimatea's eyes. Now with Ultimatea alone, he reveals his intentions to kill her too and the two engage in a fight. On the other hand, Crimson and the others sense Ragna's power as he uses his knowledge from the future to fight head-to-head with Ultimatea, despite her rewind time abilities. Moreover, during the parade, Ragna starts to have a continuation to his dream where he sees future Ragna stabbing himself with a silverine sword in order to avoid becoming a member of the superior dragons. In the dream, thinking that Ragna had perished, Ultimatea asks Desus to help her and the others return to the heavens using his wind. Suddenly, Slime, Crimson, and Golem arrive and Crimson observes Ragna's body, realizing that he had frozen his heart to avoid becoming a member of the dragon's bloodline. Seeing his hatred of dragons, Crimson tells Golem to pick up Ragna and return to their base. Back at the present, Crimson is infuriated that Ragna went against their plans while one of her henchmen reports Ragna's progress in the fight. While Ragna battles Ultimatea, Nebulum interferes, revealing that he hadn't died and had barely survived Ragna's assault. Before Ultimatea perishes, she uses her trump card time manipulation technique to escape Ragna's wrath. To save her ass, she reverts time back to the moment when Ragna was attending the parade. At that very moment, Ultimatea uses her time-stopping ability and tells Ragna how much of a threat he is to her. Furthermore, she questions why he has a deep hatred toward her despite them not having a long history together. After a while, Ultimatea is shocked as she notices Ragna move and stop time, but before she could investigate any further, Nebulum attacks Ragna with a barrage of punches. Seeing that Ragna didn't dodge Nebulum's attack, Ultimatea thinks that it was her imagination playing tricks on her, and she asks Nebulum to stop attacking since Ragna's emitting Silverine was harming him. Moreover, Ultimatea reveals that Ragna's body is still unfazed by his blows, and she believes that they'll need world-shattering magic to harm Ragna. Remembering that King Femid had a solar safeguarding attack, Ultimatea tasks one of her allies to speak with King Femid. Moreover, Ultimatea also reveals her plans to deal with Ragna's allies after they've defeated Ragna. During her time freeze, suddenly Ragna awakens and approaches Ultimatea as if the time stop had no effect on him. Scared, she doesn't know how he's moving since she's only allowed people who share blood with her to move in her closed time. To protect Ultimatea, Nebulum uses his strongest barrier, but it has no effect since Ragna easily breaks the barrier with his head. Before Ragna ends the both of them, Ragna falls to the ground due to using too much of his future powers as he starts to bleed out from his eyes and nose. To kill Ragna as soon as they could, the superior dragons force King Femid to use the solar light beam to dispose off Ragna. However, the beam doesn't work as Crimson and their ally appear by Ragna's side. Upon reaching the battlefield, Crimson looks at Ragna with disappointment for disobeying their orders. Seeing that more allies had stepped up into the battlefield, Borgias pleads with Ultimatea to use her time-stopping ability, but since she had been scarred by the sight of Ragna breaking the rules of her time freeze, she starts tweaking. Seeing that Ultimatea was trembling, Crimson realizes that he must double down and break Ultimatea's morale, and for that very reason, Crimson detonates several bombs across the Lesse Kingdom. By doing so, Crimson exposes Ultimatea's false sense of security to the kingdom's people and tries to bank on Ultimatea using her remaining power to rewind time to fix it. However, before Ultimatea could use her time reversal, Nebulum warns Ultimatea not to use her remaining energy. Seeing that Nebulum had spoiled his plan, Crimson decides to retreat and meets up with Golem, who is posted nearby. Upon meeting up with Golem, Crimson scolds him for his failures regarding the plan since Golem hadn't placed bombs on the clock tower. Before taking his leave to the hidden dimension, Crimson orders Golem to monitor the bloodline's movements and to dispose of someone's body. Meanwhile, Nebulum feels that he has failed Ultimatea badly, and he starts having a flashback in which he remembers a meeting with Borgias about maturation and its relation to their bloodline. According to the flashback, Borgias reveals that Nebulum will serve as the progenitor's backbone one day and should be proud of that status. Back at the present, Nebulum powers up and plans to find Crimson and Ragna in order to destroy them for the sake of her master. Seeing that a mere superior dragon was challenging his hidden dimension, Crimson finds it laughable and is confident that Nebulum won't find him and his allies due to the way he constructed the space. However, suddenly Ragna awakens and wants to finish off Ultimatea for good as he starts to emit Silverine. Seeing that Ragna's Silverine was cracking her space, Crimson orders Chimera to subdue him, but unfortunately, a crack allows Nebulum to detect Crimson. After getting spotted, Crimson desperately attempts to flee the area, and he orders Golem to shoot at Nebulum, leading to a skirmish between all factions. Somewhere else, Princess Starlia Lesse is informed that people entered through her underground teleportation circle. Apparently, Crimson and Ragna managed to escape but ended up in this princess's stronghold, and her advisor, Isaac, informs her that Ragna is getting medical treatment while Crimson promises to answer any questions they have for them. Upon meeting with Princess Starlia, Crimson remembers Starlia's fantastic battle prowess and her handicaps involving her lack of arms. Moreover, Crimson loathed Starlia because it was difficult to deceive her about matters as she had a gifted eye that could sense aura. Furthermore, Crimson contemplates what to do and believes it'd be best to cooperate with Starlia since their goals aligned. However, after taking the time to ponder, Crimson realizes that he can deceive Starlia with his aura manipulation, and he reveals his dragon eye to Starlia. During the interrogation of Crimson, Starlia has a flashback in which she had a meeting with Lieutenant General Pereiro. Apparently, Starlia killed Pereiro because he was plotting a coup d'etat with a neighboring country. Moreover, she knew he was plotting against their people thanks to her aura sensing abilities. In the present, Crimson executes a strategy that'll allow him to fool Starlia and avoid her ability. Despite offering a convincing tale, Starlia reads through Crimson's lies and truths. To reveal how she caught Crimson's lies, Starlia explains her abilities in greater detail to Crimson and reveals that while Crimson's aura's color turned into blue, she was telling the truth, and while it turned red, she was lying. However, since Crimson's aura's color was blue, Starlia senses something fishy deriving from him as she tells Crimson that she senses a pitch-black mass of death emanating from him. After getting negative vibes from Crimson, Starlia orders her men to unsheath their swords. Since Crimson was immortal, Crimson accepts his fate, but Ragna steps in to save him. Seeing Ragna the Rhizosaurus Rex, Starlia starts to lose her composure as she had now found her husband Doe. In reality, Starlia saw Ragna as a walking sword with arms and legs, and apparently she had a thing for walking swords. While at a total loss for words, Starlia has a flashback involving her tutor Nazarena. Apparently, Nazarena informed Starlia that she's not grounded anymore and must return to the castle. Due to Starlia dedicating time to her wordsmith activities, Nazarena said that her marriage engagement had been called off. Moreover, Nazarena is worried because she won't reap the rewards for helping Starlia successfully marry someone. Back at the present, while Starlia is infatuated with Ragna, Ragna tells them that he and Crimson are willing to cooperate. To decide Ragna and Crimson's fate, one of Starlia's people locks Crimson and Ragna in a jail cell, as in the meantime they thought about their course of action. With time to spare, Ragna and Crimson use this time to discuss their qualms with each other. After a while, Crimson restores Slime and gives Ragna a breakdown of the situation they're in. Meanwhile, Starlia is still deep in her thoughts, fantasizing a whole fanfic with her husband Doe. Seeing Crimson completely lost in her thoughts, Nazarena jokingly punches Starlia and tells her that she has become incompetent due to falling in love with Ragna. Moreover, Nazarena tells Starlia that it's nice that she has found someone to love and reminds her of her achievements. While it's great she's in love, Nazarena says she should remember to fulfill her leadership duties. Reassuring Nazarena, Starlia promises to live up to her status and she will not fail those who trust her with their lives. Meanwhile, Ultimatea apologizes to her god for her failures, and her god, who happens to be her sister, asks her why she failed to protect her. Ultimatea awakens from the nightmare and she realizes that her powers aren't as grandiose as they used to be. Meanwhile, Starlia holds a meeting where Christopher and Shin report to Starlia about the dragon activity occurring in the area nearby. Moreover, Starlia wonders what the superior dragon is planning and asks her underling Majorca for updates concerning the teleportation circle. In response, Majorca tells Fu to complete the circle within a day. During the meeting, suddenly Ragna and Crimson arrive at the meeting and Starlia is still infatuated with Ragna. To help Starlia, Crimson promises to provide Starlia and her allies with Ragna, who is capable of slaying the superior dragons. Despite being madly in love with Ragna, Starlia doesn't trust Crimson in the slightest and refuses to work with them. To gain Starlia's trust, Crimson tasks Ragna to convince Starlia, since she already had a crush on him and it would be easier if Ragna convinced her. After Ragna vouched for Crimson's hatred towards dragons, Starlia accepts their help, but she reminds Crimson that she will only be relying on him for intel, and that she will be in charge of the planning. Meanwhile, Volta Kamui visits Ultimatea, who is still shocked that she can't wield time like she used to. To comfort Ultimatea, Volta Kamui brings her the head of the man who killed Desus Troyes and tries to comfort Ultimatea. Seeing the head of the man decapitated, Ultimatea refuses to hear Volta Kamui out, as she was uncomfortable by the fact that the decapitated man had been killed painfully. Moreover, Volta Kamui presents her with a silverine blade, reminding her of Ragna. To help her understand why she was losing her powers, Volta Kamui explains that Ultimatea can't control time because she feels defeated, and to restore her control over it she must forget her fear of Ragna. Initially, Ultimatea refuses to command Volta Kamui to slay Ragna, as she wanted to prioritize obliterating the Lesser Kingdom to shape the world into her god's desires. However, after some convincing, Ultimatea yields the silverine blade and asks Volta Kamui to bring her Ragna and Crimson's heads. After Ultimatea had vented out her will to take revenge from Ragna and Crimson, the two regrouped with the other superior dragons. Later, Ragna demonstrates and explains his silverine principles to Starlia, which she can't understand due to Ragna's godly riz. To distract herself from Ragna, Starlia asks her subordinates to bring all their weapons to Ragna so he can infuse them with his silverine. While infusing Starlia's men's weapons with silverine, Ragna recalls a discussion he had with Crimson. Apparently, Crimson had suggested Ragna to infuse their weapons with half of his silverine and keep half for himself. This will allow them to not be completely dependent on the Lesser Kingdom's forces. After infusing more warriors' weapons, we cut to a few of Starlia's highly skilled subordinates conversing with each other about the situation. Apparently, two of them are upset while a warrior named Chris says he's okay with the infusion process since he's got a powerful weapon from it. Moreover, Chris argues Ragna's a talented warrior while another subordinate thinks otherwise. Whereas, a comrade named Shin challenges Ragna multiple times to prove his worth, but each time he gets his ass handed to him. Meanwhile, two twin warriors approach Ragna and present him their guns for infusing their bullets with silverine. Suddenly, Slime appears and makes a grave mistake by making fun of the girls for looking like dragons. To punish Slime, the twins escort him to an undisclosed location and share some of their past trauma with him. Moreover, they torture Slime by putting firecrackers up his ass as punishment. Meanwhile, another group of subordinates are seemingly struggling with their teleportation circle task. After a while, one of them spots Crimson and asks him why he's here. In response, Crimson acknowledges their struggles with this task and argues he can help them overcome this trial with his input. On the other hand, Ulto and the other superior dragons are discussing what they must achieve with this plan of theirs. To fulfill his promise with Ultima Tia, Woltekamui says that he plans to take care of Ragna and his friends himself and Ulto, and him argue for a bit about it. After a while, Nebulum intervenes and says that Ragna and his pals will come to them on their own and there is no need to worry about it. Seeing Nebulum, Ulto praises Nebulum for his maturity and tells Woltekamui to act more like him. Moreover, Ulto tells Ultima Tia that he can count on her for the country-destroying phase of the plan. However, Ulto doesn't plan on killing the humans mercifully like Ultima Tia wanted. Since Ultima Tia started to break, Ultima Tia says that she's fine with killing humans as long as Ulto can get the job done. To make sure everyone gets their jobs done, Teritra interrupts, telling his comrades to fulfill their duties and not fail like the others they've lost along the way. Meanwhile, Ike asks Starlia if Crimson was telling the truth about him and Ragna defeating several superior dragons. In response, Starlia tells Ike to pay little mind to Crimson since she believes he likes spreading lies within his truthful statements. However, Ike brings up Crimson's claim about superior dragons being humans, and Starlia confirms Crimson's claim by stating several soldiers working for her who have non-human traits. As Starlia confirms Crimson's claim, Ike is perplexed by this revelation, but Starlia says it makes no difference if their enemies used to be human and it's important for him to give it his all in their upcoming fight and survive. Meanwhile, Crimson and Ragna discuss if Ragna believes he has the power to defeat Woltekamui. After analyzing himself, Ragna says he may not be ready to fight him, and Crimson says he's happy to hear that considering Woltekamui is a superior dragon who surpassed his limitations. All the while, Ike bumps into Fu, where Fu tells Ike that Crimson aided his group in making their magic circle better. At the same time, the twins arrive at Ragna's cell with Slime, who appears bruised and battered. After a while, Crimson also shows up and Ragna tells him he's in his cell because it helps him remain calm. Additionally, Ragna says he saved most of his Silverine power for the upcoming fights. To task Ragna with one last task, Crimson tells Ragna to swipe one of Starlia's swords, infuse Silverine into it, and head deep underground to avoid suspicion from her soldiers. After a while, Crimson snaps Slime out of his depressive state and tells him to monitor Ragna. Before Crimson can do some meddling, Starlia arrives and he covers himself by saying that he's planning to take a nap and hasn't caused trouble. After meeting up with Ragna and Crimson, Starlia tells Ragna to follow her so he can choose a weapon. Following along, Starlia says that she plans to stay with the Solarians after their upcoming battle, and to maintain peace, she plans to become a Solarian church member and Dragon Scourge. By doing so, Starlia hopes the Solarians will protect her people. However, if she dies in the fight, she wants Ragna to become a Dragon Scourge and lead her people in her stead. Hearing Starlia's request, Ragna declines Starlia's offer, upsetting Starlia. To remind Ragna of his words, Starlia reminds Ragna about his promise to follow her and says he will obey her orders. After a while, Ragna infuses most of his Silverine into each sword and tells Starlia that he promises to keep her safe. On the other hand, Ulto, Zora, and several dragons wreak havoc in the royal palace. After causing a stir in the balance, Ulto and Teritra arrive at Starlia's base, where Teritra attempts to infiltrate it but fails. After the failed infiltration attempt, Ragna came out of the base to face off Teritra as he walked coldly with two Silverine swords in his hands. Meanwhile, Starlia's forces wait for Ulto Zora's forces to enter their base. To their surprise, several humans enter the building and beg Starlia's forces to protect them. The leader Ike recalls Crimson's warnings about Ulto's drug crafting and hypnotizing powers and tells everyone to keep their guard up as the humans attack them. After a while, Starlia arrives and assists her comrades with the human threat. During the commotion, she announces they should only protect the humans under their care and their fellow soldiers, and she deems everyone else a threat and will kill them herself if need be. Moreover, Starlia entrusts Ike with the base's protection and asks Greya, Hasela, Chris, and Nazarena to accompany her to the forest. Elsewhere, Ulto's thrilled by Starlia's resolve and can't wait to battle her soon, whereas Crimson gives the remembers the superior dragon's talent and how it's measured by the length of their maturation. If it takes them a short amount of time to mature, then they'll become more powerful as a result. During his fight with Ragna, Teritra admits he lacks talent, but he makes up for it with the years of experience he attained when he was a human. During their battle, Ragna notes it's difficult for him to land a decisive blow on Teritra, and so he examines Teritra further and believes that he'll need to use a large amount of Silverine to hurt him. After a while, Ragna plans to channel all his power into his sword and hopes this will do the trick. Meanwhile, Greya, Hesela, and members of the aerial unit patrol the forest from above, and they relay their findings to their comrades and note how they can't detect Ulto's whereabouts. Simultaneously, the twins inform Starlia that many dragons are heading near the base's east entrance and might be anticipating their next move. In response, Starlia says it's fine while Ulto praises her forces for their effort against his human army. After a while, Ulto checks on Terractora because he's mildly concerned about him. Feeling that Ulto was concentrating on him, Terractora tells Ulto not to fret since he believes that he defeated Ragna. However, Ulto questions Terractora further about Ragna to see if he is the Reaper who attacked Ultimate Tia. Believing that Ultimate Tia won't be defeated by such a weakling, Terractora believes Ragna's not the same guy. However, he says the Reaper might be present on the battlefield somewhere. To finish off Ragna, Terractora tries to kill him, but Ragna awakens and evades his attack. Suddenly, inferior dragons arrive to weaken Ragna, but Terractora argues Ragna's not a priority to him and feels these inferior dragons will be enough to defeat him. After believing Ragna was just a weakling, Terractora heads to Ulto and asks Ulto for new orders. To assign Terractora with another job, Ulto tells Terractora that he wants him to visit Starlia's location and annihilate her and her forces with his cannon attack. Hearing that Starlia was in trouble, Ragna tries stopping Terractora, but he is overwhelmed by the inferior dragon's combined might. Fortunately, Shin and Garm arrive to lend him assistance and advice. Instead of thanking the two for their help, Ragna tells them to scram and argues that he can handle the inferior dragons and Terractora by himself, angering Shin. Feeling insulted, Shin challenges Ragna to a duel, to Ragna's surprise. At that very moment, Shin has a flashback in which he was dated 4 days prior to Ragna and Crimson's arrival at Starlia's base. In his flashback, Starlia informed her forces that they should avoid problems with the superior dragons. Apparently, Shin found Starlia's methods cowardly, enticing Starlia to put Shin in his place. Moreover, Starlia announced her after-battle plans to her soldiers, and after a heartfelt discussion with a former comrade, Shin mentions that 120 soldiers decided to stay by Starlia's side. Back at the present, Shin gives Ragna a thoughtful speech about his and the others' reasons for fighting. Additionally, he tells Ragna that he doesn't care about his motives or his strength. After opening up to Ragna, Shin approaches Graham and Graham updates him on their situation. Additionally, Graham says he'd like to continue assisting everyone in this fight and achieve higher strength. After arguing with Slime for a bit, Shin and Graham plan to stop Terractora. Elsewhere, Starlia plans to use her powers to turn the forest into her territory. Simultaneously, Starlia's comrades update her on their findings and successes. On the other hand, Ulto acknowledges Starlia's strengths and realizes she's plotting something with a magic absorption circle. Additionally, Starlia's plan reminds him of his Solarian days, and he reveals that the Solarians wanted to use dragons' magic for battle purposes and finds Starlia's needs for it fascinating. Back at Starlia, even though dragons don't emit auras, Starlia can still recognize dragons because they appear as black masses to her. After a while, Starlia realizes that Ulto knows about her plan and she panics. In panic, Starlia tells her troops to be on the lookout for abnormalities, and suddenly, several dragons attack her and her squad. During this assault, as the dragons continue their assault on Starlia's forces, Ulto assumes that Starlia's magic circle's absorption range is 2 kilometers, and he recalls Nebulum's warnings about a mage named Crimson with Great Barrier magic. Moreover, Ulto says that winning this war is meaningless if Starlia manages to escape with her life intact. To win this battle at all costs, Ulto plans to attain total control over Starlia's magic teleportation circle. Near the barrier, Ike stood with his men as he was facing trouble, and his men were falling rapidly. Seeing the number of casualties within his men, he told his remaining troops to retreat. During all the commotion, Ultimate TA makes her appearance in her dragon form, and everyone appears confused as they are not able to see any movement from Ultimate TA, but his men were falling as if Ultimate TA was killing them. During the confusion, Ike suddenly realizes that the dragon in front of him was actually controlling time. Just at that moment, Crimson hops into the line of fire with an orb-like flashbang which works like a cheat code as it burns Ultimate TA. After immobilizing Ultimate TA, Crimson reveals that he manipulated the orb's function so that it explodes when it senses time has stopped. Additionally, Crimson tells Ike that he supplied the humans he was protecting with weapons and a bunch of M16s because they wanted to join the fight. Although Ike's not thrilled with Crimson's methods, he is forced to comply as he was their only hope. Additionally, Crimson says that Ulto knows about the next phase of their teleportation plan, and is plotting to deploy his human army around their base to ruin it. To combat Ulto's army, Crimson wants to pit his hypnotized forces against them. Elsewhere, Goron is infuriated that he can't break through one of the base's barriers. Annoyed, he notices Fu nearby and asks him to take him to the magic circle. However, Fu refuses and decides to fight Goron. Seeing Fu's stance, Goron has a brief flashback of Starlia arguing with Fu about the magic circle's magic requirement. Back at the present, Fu defeats Goron and steals his magic. While hilarious antics ensue between Fu and his comrades, Crimson watches and is impressed by Starlia's force's strength. Suddenly, strange things start happening in the area, and Crimson urges Fu and his comrades to follow him. Confused, Fu asks Crimson several questions and Crimson tells him that he should focus on protecting the barrier. Meanwhile, Starlia's forces battle with the mature dragons, whereas Ulto is intrigued by Starlia's strange battle tactics. However, the dragons pull a fast one on Starlia, causing her to plummet to the ground. Starlia down on the ground, Ulto praises Starlia for her efforts but acknowledges her inexperience. Before he claims victory, Tora tells Ulto that 3 men, namely Shin, Graham, and Ragna, have defeated a third of his army and says they should address that development. Meanwhile, Shin and Graham are seen hesitant as they aren't sure if they'll prevail, but they start to note that Ragna is finally starting to sharpen his abilities and is getting comfortable with his power, but he doesn't know how long he can keep it going. However, to protect everyone from death, he'll do all he can to defeat the dragons. Simultaneously, Ulto admits that he has miscalculated the situation. To protect everyone, Ragna slays numerous dragons within a blink of an eye. Meanwhile, one of Starlia's troops rushes to her aid and she orders the troops to take her northwest. During this time, Ulto learns that Goron and Platinum Tiara didn't achieve victory in battle, baffling him. Moreover, he thinks about Starlia's forces, their true capabilities and firepower. Baffled, he asks Tora how long he will recuperate, and in response, he tells him that it won't take much long. To counter Starlia's forces, Ulto develops a new strategy and relays it to Tora. With the plan in mind, Tora proceeds as normal and plans to blow everything up within 5 minutes. Meanwhile, Shin helps Ragna slay a dragon and Ragna tells him not to interfere, but he retracts his order when he remembers Shin's words about not acting like a hero. Feeling like he was acting like a prick, Ragna apologizes to Shin and says Shin and Graham can fight the dragons in any way they want. In return, Ragna reveals that he plans to protect them and asks the two to follow his lead. While following and slaying dragons under Ragna's lead, Shin and Graham reflect on how Ragna is influencing them. Suddenly, Ulto infects several mature dragons on Ragna and his allies. As a counterattack, Ragna defeats them easily and swiftly, angering Shin because Ragna's not letting him or Graham partake in the hunt. However, Ragna tells the others to continue following him, despite Shin's infuriation with him. Elsewhere, Ulto's enraged that Ragna and his allies are swiftly killing his forces. Additionally, Ulto is flustered by Starlia's human forces and is curious about what type of weapons they're using. After some brainstorming, Ulto concludes that someone else is leading these humans against him, and he wonders if the same people who caused Ultimate TA and the others' issues are present on the battlefield. Meanwhile, at the Magic Teleportation Circle's location, Crimson has a brainwashed human repress Fu and his allies. Seeing all of the force overwhelmed, Crimson tells them that he'll be taking over the Magic Circle now. Furthermore, Crimson reveals his intentions for the Magic Circle, which aligns with their needs for it. However, he doesn't want to bring along people he feels would be dead weight. Hearing Crimson's condition, everyone starts agreeing with Crimson, but Fu realizes something's wrong with everyone and confronts Crimson about it. To reassure Fu, Crimson ensures Fu that nothing's wrong with his friends and everything is fine. Meanwhile, Ulto ponders if Ragna's the Reaper since he knows the capital bombing person is here. Scared, Ulto contemplates if he should inform Woltekamui that the Reaper's here. However, he hesitates because he knows Starlia has allies who have things that rival superior dragons. Therefore, he'd be sending Woltekamui to his death. Meanwhile, as Starlia's troops take Starlia northwest, Hesela notices Greya devouring several mature dragons. Upon seeing Hesela, Greya hands Hesela some dragon meat and tells her that they're the only ones in their unit who survived. Powered up, Hesela and Greya plot their revenge. Back at the Magic Teleportation Circle, Crimson makes out with Fu, and suddenly Fu realizes that he can't move as Crimson's voice was infiltrating his mind slowly. During this time, Crimson prattles on about wanting to be loved by many before Crimson entices Fu to activate the Magic Circle for him. Before Fu activates the Magic Circle, Majo calls out to Fu and tells him not to obey Crimson. Suddenly, one of Crimson's men shoots Majo, causing everyone to panic. With panic arising, Fu tries to help Majo, but Crimson pins him to the ground as he realizes that his hypnosis magic was losing its hold on the others. Panicked, Crimson threatens to kill the remaining Thaumaturges if they don't comply and activate the circle. Not wanting his friends to perish, Fu tells Crimson that he'll activate the circle. Suddenly, Majo receives a power boost, shocking Crimson as Crimson orders the brainwashed humans to shoot at Majo, but their gunfire proves ineffective against her. To fight off Crimson, Majo uses her powers to teleport Crimson and his humans away from the circle. After stressing a lot of her powers, Majo falls unconscious and Fu and his friends rush to her aid. Meanwhile, Crimson and his humans fall from the sky and he can't believe that Majo has teleportation magic inside her body. Upset that he lost an opportunity to obtain notable troops under his liege, Crimson and his brainwashed humans fall from the sky as they are moments away from splatting onto the ground. On the other hand, Ulto Zora still contemplates if it's a great idea to have Woltekamui arrive on the battlefield or not. At that very moment, he wonders why the Reaper Ragna and his affiliate Crimson are helping Starlia's forces. Confused, he speculates several things Crimson could gain from supporting Starlia's forces. Ultimately, Ulto believes that he is competing in a race with Crimson to see who can achieve their goal first. With a race in mind, Ulto is confident that he will kill Starlia before Crimson can accomplish his goal. Meanwhile, Crimson lies on the ground, powerless. With his body on the ground, Crimson hopes Ragna can escape with commendable allies and that Starlia perishes in the battle. All the while, in the battle between Starlia's group and Ulto's mature dragons, the commander's still holding Starlia on his back and he encourages the remaining troops to continue fighting. After regrouping with the commander, the twins provide these soldiers with aid and Starlia hopes they can continue overwhelming the dragons. As she is being transported, Starlia recalls Crimson's words to her about why she shouldn't underestimate superior dragons. While the twins examine the battleground where Ragna fought Tora, Starlia ponders other things Crimson relayed to her concerning Ulto's eye ability and its range. With this intel, Starlia feels that she has narrowed down Ulto's location. On the other hand, Ulto raises his dragon army's insanity levels with his powers. Although they'll be useless to him in 10 minutes, he feels they'll get the job done in due time. Moreover, Ulto speculates how Starlia will deal with this increase in insanity levels. Meanwhile, Starlia and her forces power up and head for Ulto's location as they plan to hit him with an attack they used to defeat a past superior dragon. After realizing someone was closing onto him, Ulto gets up from his seat and starts spreading a deadly toxin in the air. As Starlia and her troops draw closer to him, Ulto receives an image in his mind of a human female named Lakusha. Suddenly, Nazarena appears behind Ulto and chops off his head and the arm he was using to spread the deadly toxin. However, Ulto remains unfazed by Nazarena's attack, making her question what was happening before her eyes. Confused, Nazarena leaves Ulto alone as she feels she's done her part in this war. With Ulto's location compromised, Starlia and her allies rush to Ulto's location as she is satisfied with Nazarena's attempt since it convinced her to tell the others not to go through with their ultimate attack. Moreover, Starlia senses the real Zora is 100 meters underground and using her powers, she drags Ulto onto the surface and tells Chris that she's counting on him. Meanwhile, Ulto ponders his human life and the time he spent with Lakusha. As Ulto ponders this strange sensation he's feeling, Tora warns him about the forest's elevated magic levels. Additionally, he warns Ulto to not let the dragons enter the forest. Suddenly, the forest dragons arise from the ground and start gobbling humans. Seeing this, Ulto mentions that he can't control them, but realizes that the forest dragons are attacking his enemies, too. After a while, Ulto realizes that Borgias has regained his abilities and was trying to help them in the war. However, Ulto yells at Borgias for interfering in his war with Starlia, but he revokes his statement because he feels he is about to do something stupid. Meanwhile, Ragna, Graham, and Shin continue slaughtering more dragons. Seeing them eliminating the dragons, Tora attacks them with his arm cannon and tells Ulto that he annihilated them with his attack. After using his arm cannon, Tora asks Ulto for an update on Starlia's condition. Using his eye, Ulto spots Starlia lying on the ground but tells Tora a lie about her status. Simultaneously, Ulto doesn't know why he's doing this and tells Tora to keep an eye on Ragna as he uses this opportunity to contemplate his strange behavior. After a while, Ulto approaches Starlia's unconscious body and questions the decisions he's made in the battle so far. Afterwards, he contemplates his human existence with his human subordinates and Lakusha. During this moment, we learn that Woltekamui had actually murdered Lakusha and Ulto, and became one of the superior dragons afterwards. Seeing Starlia, Ulto sees a resemblance between Princess Lakusha and Princess Starlia. Moreover, Ulto states how everything he lost during that time resurfaced through this fight. After a while, he tells Starlia that he adores their battle and praises her and her troops for their effort. In a flashback, Crimson had informed Starlia about Lakusha's leadership skills and Ulto's human past. Ultimately, Crimson tells Starlia to not give up during her fight with Ulto since their resolve will slowly drive him insane. After a while, Ulto asks Starlia to join the Blood of the Wing, but Starlia responds and admits that Ulto bested her in many categories. However, she informs Ulto about one area she beats him in. Suddenly, Starlia unleashes her Forging Arts attack on Ulto, which forces him against a tree. To protect Starlia, several soldiers retrieve Starlia's body and Chris removes the weapon she used to penetrate Ulto's body. After Chris wielded the sword, Starlia activates her Thought Union technique to communicate with her remaining troops, and she requests everyone to send their energy to the silverine weapon Chris was wielding. Using the weapon, Chris throws this weapon at Terractora and Ulto tells Terractora to watch out. Instead of dodging the weapon, Terractora fires his cannon at it, which results in a massive explosion. After the explosion cleared up, thanks to Ulto's aura, Terractora only suffered a minor injury, but in that very instant, Ragna jumped in to grab the weapon Chris had thrown. Meanwhile, Shin awakens in a water-like bubble. Confused, Shin observes Ragna from within the bubble as Ragna grabs Chris's blade and fires his hunting flash attack at Terractora. Spectating from afar, Ulto mourns as Terractora finally dies from the attack. However, before dying, Terractora tells Ulto that he blew himself up to avoid dying instantly from Ragna's attack. Seeing that Terractora still had some energy, Ulto blames himself for giving Terractora false information, but Terractora tells him not to worry about it. Additionally, he says that they should focus on developing a strategy that'll help them prevail in this war with Starlia. Before dying, Terractora starts to have a flashback of the time when he was a human, revealing that he, alongside Ulto, and they both had ties to Princess Lacutia. Simultaneously, Terractora reflects on his long-standing relationship with Ulto, and hopes he can forgive him. Upon Terractora's request, Ulto tells Terractora to use his remaining life force to blow himself and ensure Starlia and the others' death. Before the enormous explosion, Ulto makes his escape, and after ensuring that Ulto had exited his blast radius, Terractora explodes. To prevent the blast from obliterating everything, Ragna tries holding the blast back with his Silverine Freeze. Despite Slime providing Ragna with aid, Ragna realizes that Terractora's explosion is too much for him, and from afar, Starlia wonders if Ragna can prevent the blast from hitting them. After speculating for a while, Starlia realizes that her sword might be holding Ragna back, and starts blaming herself for it. Additionally, she ponders about all the soldiers she lost and those who survived during this war. To help out Ragna in stopping the blast, Starlia uses her abilities to lend Ragna more power, as she wanted to prevent more casualties from dying. After a while, she informs Ragna that she has troops protecting her while she's performing this duty. Although Terractora's strength overpowers them, Starlia and Ragna turn up the heat, and finally they neutralize Terractora's attack. After neutralizing Terractora's blast, Starlia realizes that the current Ragna is strong because of his future counterpart, and she shares her concerns for future Ragna since Ragna had lended a lot of power from his future self. In response, current Ragna thanks Starlia for worrying about future Ragna, whereas Starlia thanks Ragna for his help and pleads with him to abandon Crimson and join her army. Before Ragna could reply, Ragna faints, whereas Chris and the others check up on Starlia, and she's thankful that the war is concluded. After resting some time, Fu's comrades tell him the magic teleportation circle is ready to use, whereas Ragna awakens after a long time knocked out. However, before our humans celebrated their victory against Ulto and Terractora, Woltekamui arrives and murders Starlia and her forces. Afterwards, Woltekamui turns his attention to Ragna and prepares to throw hands. While Ragna and Woltekamui clash, we receive a flashback with Ragna and Crimson, where Crimson informs Ragna about Woltekamui's powerful Six Claws and Twin Fangs demon sword. Additionally, he informs Ragna about the Clawed bloodline, who are tied together through swords and combat arts. Adding on, he states an outlaw murdered one of them in the past and stole one of the demonic swords. Adding on, he reveals that Woltekamui was an outlaw and that he murdered someone in his human past and stole one of the demonic swords. Moreover, Crimson warns Ragna that he shouldn't get involved with Woltekamui and only fight him once Ultimate TA dies. Despite Crimson's warnings, Ragna says nah, I'd win, and immediately gets humbled as Woltekamui forces him onto the ground. Feeling hopeless, Ragna starts to dream as he finds himself in an alternate dimension with Starlia, who begs him to wake up. As Ragna finally awakens, Starlia tells him that she's the real deal. Additionally, she says she and the others successfully teleported away to this strange environment because of the magic teleportation circle. After they both strolled for a while, Starlia stops and tells Ragna to go on without her. Moreover, Starlia says that she must create a strong sword called the Silver Comet, as even if this results in her death, she wants to assure Ragna that this sword will be of use to him. Since Ragna refuses to leave Starlia's side, suddenly, the ground erupts under Ragna's feet, causing him to fall. After spending 2 days unconscious, Ragna wakes up and finds himself with bandages wrapped around his body. Although Starlia may be gone, Ragna says he can still feel her aura within himself. After exiting his camp, Ragna notices Chris, Fu, and the others are around him. Moreover, Ragna heads outside and notices that he's in the Solarine church grounds. After a while, Ragna meets up with Ike as Ike takes him to meet with someone important. After a while, Ragna hears Ultimate's voice and he attacks subconsciously, but the women's look-alike appear as they start to introduce themselves as the Dragon Scourge of the Solarian Church. After reviving the Dragon Scourge leader, Karula, Ragna had killed, she forgives Ragna since they all knew Ragna's hate for Ultimate was immense. After seeing that they had time reversal abilities, Ragna asks her if she can use her time powers to save Starlia's life. In response, she reveals that she can, but she is against it because it uses too much energy and she feels saving Starlia is a waste of time. Hearing her response, Ragna says if she kills Ike, he'll kill her and her copies. Instead of resorting to violence, Ragna, Ike and Karula decide to chat on top of one of the area's buildings. During their discussion, Nazarena reveals herself to be a member of the Solarian Church whose purpose was to convert Starlia into a member, and she was to kill Starlia if she refused to join the Solarian Church. However, since Nazarena failed to kill Starlia after her refusal to join the church, Nazarena was awaiting to hear from her higher-ups about her punishment. As soon as Nazarena took her leave, the leader of the Dragon Scourge invites Ragna and asks if he'd like to become a Dragon Scourge. Without any hesitation, Ragna immediately declines, and upon his refusal, Karula blackmails him by saying that she will transport Starlia's army back to Earth. Enraged, Ragna destroys their meeting table and says that she will take in the refugees and in return he will kill Ultimate. After the meeting is over, Ragna departs with Slime and the two enter one of the buildings far away to meet up with Crimson. Upon meeting Crimson, Crimson shows Ragna a key to another dimension while saying that he will heal Ragna. After entering the hidden dimension which Crimson had restored, Crimson says that he wants to focus on building up a proper team centered around Ragna's Silverine capabilities and that they can't make their next move until the globe chamber is restored in 3 years. Hearing that they have to wait for 3 years, Ragna says they should defeat Ultimate now and they shouldn't delay it. However, Crimson remains firm and says they will defeat Ultimate later as he believes that Starlia has already passed away. Believing that Starlia was still alive, Ragna tells Crimson that Starlia is alive and they should hurry despite Crimson thinking otherwise. Despite Golem's warning, Ragna does not back down, and before taking his leave, he thanks Crimson for giving him the key. However, before he could even depart, he succumbed to the poison Crimson had ordered him to drink when they first joined teams. Essentially, Crimson told him if he took this toxin, he couldn't rebel against him. Seeing Ragna fall, Crimson laughs at Ragna's idiocy, but she gets the shock of her life when she sees Ragna stand back up in an instant. Determined to save Starlia, Ragna apologizes for his betrayal, but Crimson doesn't care and now wants to kill him. To immobilize Ragna, Chimera tries attacking Ragna, but he swiftly stops her. After humbling both Crimson and Chimera, Ragna informs him about his future self's first encounter with him. Apparently, during this encounter, future Ragna realized Crimson's body lacked a heart after he murdered him. As Ragna departs from the base, Crimson heads to one of his base's rooms to rest. Meanwhile, Ragna returned to the Argentum Corps' base and stumbles upon Ike, Shin, Chris, and the others. With everyone together, Ragna reveals that Starlia is alive. Meanwhile, Woltekamui and Starlia are seen in a room where Woltekamui grabs Starlia and shows her that Ulto Zora left a poison mark on her body. Therefore, if she attempts to leave the capital or if Ragna and her allies get near her, the poison will activate and kill her. Moreover, Woltekamui prattles on about Ulto and the wounds Ragna inflicted on him during their fight. On the other hand, Ultimate prays to her deity as she vows to destroy their enemies and restore their powers. Additionally, she hopes God will speak with her again. After a while, after Borgwiz completed his metamorphosis, he becomes a being named the Elder and he enters the area, asking Ultimate what she and God were discussing. Then, Elder and Ultimate discuss about Starlia's forces and Ragna and the likelihood of their arrival. After a while, Elder interrogates Nebulum and asks him why he's not responding to his telepathic messages regarding the sun's vanishing debacle. In response, Nebulum confirms he's responsible for the sun's actions because he wants to see if he can create a space that remains in the night. Seeing Nebulum's efforts, Elder praises Nebulum and says he's willing to let Nebulum continue his project and leave Ultimate TA in his care. Back to Starlia. Starlia reveals that she is not afraid to die but promises to forge a sword that'll overcome Woltekamui's claws. Elsewhere, Ike asks Fu for an update regarding the teleportation circle's progress. In response, Fu says it'll take him some time, so in the meantime, Ike visits Carula and asks if she can provide them with magic support. Since Ultimate TA's demise was a common goal, Carula accepts to lend them a hand, but she demands the magic absorption circle's formula and a sample of Ragna, Fu and Majo's blood. Moreover, Carula reveals that if she feels skeptical about Ike and his force's course of action, she will stop them if she feels they have no chance of victory. On the other hand, Snake enters Crimson's room to check on him and finds Crimson still shaken up by Ragna's remarks. Moreover, Snake informs Crimson about Borgias and his ploy to sacrifice his life. Adding on, he reveals that if Borgias pulls this off, then Snake and Crimson will be the final members of the Old Wing bloodline. After hearing Snake, Crimson pulls up a virtual map and upon seeing Nebulum's barrier, he wonders if Ultimate TA is still incapable of controlling time. Realizing the situation might be in their favor, Crimson tells everyone to prepare for battle as he decides to use Ragna and Starlia's army as distraction to kill Ultimate TA. Meanwhile, Nazarena and Ike share their belief that Starlia is in the Palace District along with the Winged Monarch, Ultimate TA. Hearing that the group was focused on Starlia, Carula states that they should focus on killing Ultimate TA first, since if they do defeat her, then the remaining superior dragons will fall. After a while, Ragna shares his desire to Woltekamui head-on. Later, Ike tells everyone that they will initiate their plan in 2 days, and in the meantime, he hopes everyone will prepare. Meanwhile, Graham and Ragna have a quick sparring session. After sparring for a while, both warriors acknowledge each other's strength and growth. Although Ragna is happy with the strength he was gifted, he argues it's difficult for him to feel proud of it since he hadn't worked insanely hard to acquire it. After a while, Graham informs Ragna about one of the maneuvers he saw him perform during their battle with Teraktora and admits that he imitated his tactic and successfully pulled it off. Even though his feat wasn't on par with Ragna's, Graham is still proud of what he achieved, and he asks Ragna to continue leading them down a brighter path by showing them his strength. After a while, as everyone prepared to teleport back to Earth, Fu initiated the magic circle, whereas the Dragon Scourge sacrificed themselves to initiate a time control magic countermeasure-like spell. Apparently, this will enable Ike and the others to act within stop time. However, they only have 3 minutes to do so, according to Carula. As the Dragon Scourge members die one after another, Carula gives them a heartfelt speech before Ragna and the Starlia's forces are teleported back to the capital. Awaiting for the humans to return, Ulto Zora and the Elder confront Starlia's forces, whereas Ragna decides to fight Woltekamui. Meanwhile, Nebulum senses Crimson and his entourage have arrived on the scene. Upon arriving to the battlefield, Crimson realizes that Ultimate TA hasn't stopped time and concludes that it's possible that she can't stop time. Suddenly, Elder transforms into his dragon form as he tells his enemies that he will crush them. Back to Ragna, Ragna confronts Woltekamui and upon seeing Starlia, he rushes over to Starlia's side. Meanwhile, Ulto tells Starlia's army that Starlia will perish soon, regardless if they defeat him. Back to Ragna, Ragna is horrified to see Starlia poisoned throughout her whole body. Although Starlia successfully forged the Silver Comet Sword for Ragna, she tells him it won't assist him in combating Woltekamui's claws since she was a failure till the end. For the sake of Starlia, Ragna promises Starlia that he'll defeat Woltekamui with her sword. After giving Starlia and Ragna the time to chit-chat, Woltekamui finally returns back to the battlefield and they immediately clash swords. After battling for a while, Ragna is able to pierce Woltekamui's humanic body, and he entices Woltekamui to transform into his dragon form. While Chimera and another ally confronted the Elder, Ragna and Woltekamui's battle intervenes with theirs. Noticing Chimera and her ally are in danger, Ragna lends the two a hand by freezing the Elder's face. Following Ragna's aid, Woltekamui attacks Ragna, pushing him away from the battlefield. Although the Elder is immobilized by Ragna's Silverine, his dragon form sprouts new heads. Meanwhile, Starlia's forces overwhelm Ulto Zora with their combined might. Despite having the upper hand, Starlia's forces' morale dwindles briefly. Seeing this opportunity, Ulto ponders if he'll ever achieve Teraktora's level of strength. With the thought of his deceased comrade flowing through his mind, Ulto transforms into a more muscular and capable dragon. Meanwhile, Ragna and Woltekemui take their duel to outer space, whereas Nazarena and Starlia observe the battle from afar. Seeing Nazarena by her side, Starlia tells Nazarena to leave her be and assist the others with the dragons. Hearing Starlia, Nazarena recalls her first encounter with Starlia when she was younger. Although Nazarena acknowledges Starlia's disabilities, she mentions that Starlia is still around because others see value in her peculiar powers. After the flashback, Nazarena departs and plans to assist the others with the dragons. On the other hand, Nebulum senses Crimson nearby and speculates that Crimson was after Ultimate TA. Although initially Nebulum isn't worried, Crimson starts to breach through Nebulum's barrier, causing him to panic. Before Nebulum is able to counter it, Slime appears next to him and absorbs him, killing him in the process. Meanwhile, Crimson infiltrates and appears behind Ultimate TA. Using his last breath, Nebulum calls out to Ultimate TA, alerting Ultimate TA of Crimson's lurk. Panicked, Crimson uses his firearm and uses his device to prevent Ultimate TA's time manipulation powers from interfering with his ploy. To counter Crimson, Ultimate TA transforms into a dragon. Seeing Ultimate TA transform, Crimson has a flashback of the time when he held a civil discussion with other versions of himself regarding Ragna and what he had said to him. Afterwards, Crimson grabs his heart in and places it inside his body, causing him to transform. In his new state, Crimson uses his various weapons to fight Ultimate TA head-on. Before Crimson can deal a decisive blow to her, Ultimate TA unleashes a powerful attack, engulfing the room in a large explosion. Meanwhile, Starlia's forces battle with Ulto, and after Ulto murders most of the Starlia's army, he turns his attention toward Ike and tries murdering him. Fortunately, Fu protects Ike from Ulto's assault as Fu injects himself with a concoction, allowing him to attain powers that are on par with the dragons. Despite putting in a decent effort against Ulto, Fu gets knocked into a nearby gap. To protect Fu from getting hurt, Ike jumps in and saves Fu from falling into the gap. All the while, Ulto Zora tries to stop him, but several Starlia's army thwarts his efforts. Seeing Ike had come to his rescue, Fu thanks Ike for saving him and tells Ike to hold off Ulto with the others. Moreover, Fu reveals his plan to use all the magic he absorbed from Ulto to defeat him. As they discussed, Chris interrupts their conversation and tells Ike to tend to Fu's needs as he steps in to hold off Ulto. As Chris stepped in to fight Ulto as the leader of Starlia's army, Chris has a flashback in which he reflects on his experiences with his mother, her obsession with royalty, and how it drove her to madness. After his mother's passing, Chris turned into a mercenary and opted for illegal missions because those motivated him more. Moreover, one of Christopher's missions involved him holding his own against a mature dragon. Due to this mission of Chris caught Starlia's attention, and after Starlia praises Chris for his efforts, Chris is hired by Starlia. Back at the present, Chris gives it his all in the fight. After a while, Ike, Chris and Fu attack Ulto together, causing him severe pain. As Ulto was on death's doorstep, Ulto wishes he could give Starlia's army a better reward for defeating him other than his life. As Ulto was dying, Ike tells Ulto that he holds no regrets, and Ike kills off Ulto as Ulto dies thinking of his fallen comrades. After delivering the final blow, Ike is aided by Nazarena, whereas Fu takes his last breath fighting alongside his comrades. Moreover, Nazarena also reveals Ike that Starlia had passed away too. Back to Crimson. Crimson realizes that it could be a pain fighting Ultimate TA since she has a lot of magical prowess, and hence she switches to a more psychological attack approach. During Crimson's fight, Ultimate TA has a flashback about the Solarian Frontline Base 17. Apparently in this base, many Carula copies and workers were tending to fallen soldiers' needs. While Carula was tending to people's needs, another Carula greets her. Apparently, the Carula we've been following happens to be the youngest of the batch. Moreover, our Carula informs the leader Carula of that time that she was expedited to this base because they needed more Carula recruits. Suddenly, the leader Carula grows old and starts withering due to her immense effort in helping one of their patients. Before she passes, the leader Carula notices our Carula's sorrow about her passing and finds it strange since Carula copies didn't. Moreover, she assigns our Carula as the leader of Carulas. While our Carula wanders the base, the man the leader Carula had saved thanks her for saving him. Even though she wasn't the one who saved him, she decides to take credit for her leader's effort. Back at the present, during Chimera and her allies' fight against the Elder notices the barriers surrounding the battlefields falling down, giving Chimera and her ally a chance to hurt him. While screaming in pain, Nebulum appears in the Elder's mind. In the Elder's mind, Nebulum tells the Elder that he is counting on him to win this fight, and apologizes that he couldn't live up to his expectations. Saddened from Nebulum's death, the Elder transforms into a shadowy beast and he murders Chimera and her ally in an instant. Moreover, to protect Ultimate TA upon Nebulum's request, he proceeds to teleport to the castle and potentially murders Slime. Seeing Nebulum's skeleton on the ground, the Elder kneels before Nebulum's decrepit remains and mourns. Meanwhile, before Crimson could deliver the final blow to Ultimate with his firearm, the space they were fighting in cracks, taking the two by surprise. As the space cracked, the Elder intervenes between Crimson and Ultimate's battle, and he tells Ultimate to come by his side because he can't reach their location. To prevent Ultimate's escape, Crimson chases her. Meanwhile, Chimera reflects on her partnership with Snake, and although Snake is a part of Chimera's body, Chimera questions how he knows Crimson better than herself. In the present, Snake asks Chimera to switch with him, making Snake receive a physical body. After transforming into a humanic form, the Elder immediately attacks Snake, but Snake counters his attack with a suicidal attack called the World Collapse. Due to this attack alone, the Elder, Crimson, and Ultimate all get damaged. Additionally, it forces Crimson and Ultimate out of their respective spatial battlefield. With his hand chopped off, Crimson confronts Snake about his tactic, and Snake apologizes for using it. Moreover, the Elder returns to his human form and starts burning up due to the sun. Seeing that after his death only one superior will be alive, he calls out to Wolt Kamui, informing him that he's the only one left who can protect Ultimate. To end the Elder, Ike arrives and delivers the final blow to the Elder. After dealing with the Elder, Ike, along with two of his comrades, head towards Ultimate. Meanwhile, Ragna is still in an ongoing battle with Wolt Kamui, but after a while, Ragna starts to overwhelm him. Seeing that he was getting beaten, Wolt Kamui decides to rely on a dormant power to defend himself against Ragna's might. Simultaneously, Ultimate gets up and murders one of Ike's comrades. To end Ultimate, Nazarena stabs Ultimate's head with her sword, causing her to unleash a barrage of energy blasts. Suddenly, Wolt Kamui unleashes his lighting god battle arts technique, causing everyone on Earth to fall down to the ground due to the immense pressure from it. In desperation, Ultimate looks up at the sky and calls out to Wolt Kamui. During the battle, Wolt Kamui has a flashback involving an entity called Gilzia, the Clawed Monarch. Apparently, Wolt Kamui had tried attacking Gilzia but failed to damage her and instead got himself slashed 8 times. Moreover, seeing Wolt Kamui's attempts to kill her, Gilzia says that she's arrived because she wants to see what Wolt Kamui's sword is capable of. However, before leaving, she beheads Wolt Kamui and tells him that the people who cut her receive the same punishment in return. Since Wolt Kamui was extremely talented, Gilzia grabbed his severed head, praised him, and told him to fight strong opponents in order to grow stronger than ever before. Back at the present, Wolt Kamui remembers Gilzia's words and starts to transform into a stronger being to match his strong opponent. While Wolt Kamui overwhelms Ragna with his new transformation, Crimson crawls over to his severed arm and gun. Meanwhile, Slime wanders over to Hazella, but Crimson asks Slime to come to him, but suddenly, a spark of light engulfs the battlefield. Back to Ragna, Wolt Kamui is finally able to behead Ragna, and he states that he plans to kill Gilzia and the Dragon God next. Suddenly, Ragna engulfs the battlefield with his light and reattaches his head. Meanwhile, Ultimate reminisces about her past experience as a Karula copy, and she recalls the time when she was one of the oldest Karulas at their frontline base. Apparently, during that time, someone had crashed at the frontline base, and the person who crashed into their base turned out to be a young Wolt Kamui. After crashing onto the base, Wolt Kamui told Ultimate that all of her Karula subordinates disgusted him and asked her to get out of his sight. Seeing that Wolt Kamui was hurt, Ultimata promised to heal Wolt Kamui if he let her heal one of her clones. Since Wolt Kamui was a short-tempered brat, he threatened to kill Ultimate if she didn't leave and started to charge up. After Ultimate made a run for it, Wolt Kamui collapsed and Ultimate also slipped down the stairs. Remembering that Wolt Kamui had called her easily replaceable since her clones will take her place after her death, Ultimate got up and returned to Wolt Kamui. Seeing Ultimate returning, Wolt Kamui killed Ultimate, but she reverses time to revive, and she heals Karula clones and Wolt Kamui's wounds. Seeing that Ultimate was unique from the other clones, ever since then, Wolt Kamui accompanied Ultimate everywhere she went. Back at the present, Ultimate calls out to Wolt Kamui once more. Hearing Ultimate's distraught call for help, Wolt Kamui rushes towards Ragna to kill him and return back to Ultimate as soon as he can. Within a flash, Ragna is pierced by Wolt Kamui's blade and takes a hellish beating before getting beheaded in the attack. However, Ragna reattaches his head and he hits Wolt Kamui with a hunting flash. Meanwhile, Ultimate, at the verge of death, calls out to Wolt Kamui, which fires up all his senses as he attacks head-on towards Ragna. During the battle, Wolt Kamui keeps on having flashes of Gilzia in front of him. From afar, Gilzia stood saying that Ragna had finally reached a level of strength that is capable of beating her. After a while, Ragna hits Woltekamui with his twin hunting flash, and due to the consecutive nature of this attack, Woltekamui is caught off guard and he dies in the process. Before completely disappearing, he tosses his blade towards Ultimate as he apologizes to her for not being able to repay his debt to her. As Woltekamui disappeared, Ragna fell back to earth and he fell face first to the ground. Seeing that all of her superior dragons had been slain, Ultimate starts to panic as she screams for the time to stop. After a desperate attempt to stop time, the time does stop moving, and due to this, she realizes her powers have finally returned. With her powers back, Ultimate rejoices for a little bit, but before she is able to turn back time once more, one of the twins comes in clutch as she guns down Ultimate using Crimson's pistol, which contains silverine-laced bullets. After killing off Ultimate has a final flashback about the time when she was with young Woltekamui on top of a cliff's edge. Apparently, young Woltekamui had asked Ultimate's Karula about what she wants in return as a way of paying her back, as he was in debt to her. At this time, a pact is formed between them to free Karula from God. Back at the present and near death, Ultimate is seen walking towards Woltekamui's sword with bullets in her chest as she remembers her time in the Solorian church, where she was labeled as product number 19,835. Apparently, she was exceptionally talented even with limited time and experience amongst all the copies. Moreover, one day, all of her clones had gone berserk and the church blames her as someone who doesn't believe in the sun god, and her relationship with Woltekamui is a factor for the church's losses. With Woltekamui imprisoned, they plan on killing him and all the berserk copies of Karula. Just at that moment, the true dragon god makes an appearance, frees Ultimate and Woltekamui as she creates Ultimate the winged monarch of the dragon god. Back at the present, as Ultimate crawled, she begs God for a second chance, but soon learns that she is no longer needed as she starts to burn in the sunlight while remembering Woltekamui's words that helped her live more than she could. After learning that she was moments away from dying, she tries making her way towards the shade of Woltekamui's blade, but she burns away before reaching there. Spectating Ultimate's death, Crimson lets her dragon-fused body burn as he places her heart back in captivity behind the four barriers and sighs about the horrible victory, with the cries of one of the alive twins echoing. Meanwhile, Ragna meets up with his future self, asking if he regrets his action. In response, current Ragna shows no regret, but the loss of his friends does make him very sad. As Ragna sat alone, Crimson appeared asking about how he was doing. Moreover, since Ragna was held in a chamber, Crimson tells him to leave and he escorts him to a hospital room where he meets unconscious Starlia. Upon reaching the hospital, Ragna learns that Starlia's poison had healed, and the reason she was fighting to live onwards was none other than Ragna. With Starlia on the hospital bed, he reminisces about all his fallen comrades before meeting with Shin outside the hospital. After saying his goodbyes to Shin, he reveals that he is off to hunt the next bloodline as he sets off again with Crimson and Slime to a journey to end all dragons. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss a future video. And until next time guys, take care.